Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to have you. This webinar is a way for us to celebrate Unleash 7. It is our latest major release, and we're very excited about it. It's been out for a couple of weeks, so if you're a cloud-hosted customer, you've already seen the cool new features. And if you're self-hosted, we highly encourage you to upgrade. We also have an upgrade migration guide for you, so the transition is seamless. And yeah, so today we have seven people from Unleash, for all across from engineering to customer journey and UX. And they have all brought you their favorite things and the things they're very excited about around Unleash. But before we get going with the demos, I want to welcome Ivar, the CTO and co-founder of Unleash. Hi, Ivar.
Hello. Nice to meet
you. Hello. So I have some questions for Ivar, but I also want to encourage all of you to put your questions in the chat, and we'll answer them at the end. So let's start with Unleash 7. So Ivar, tell us about Unleash 7. How does the team go about preparing for a major release like this, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, so to start with what I'm most excited about, and I think those major releases is something we try to do as an annual event here at Unleash. It's our opportunity to kind of do some technical depth cleanup. And one of the things that we have been holding out on for Unleash is based on JavaScript. We use TypeScript and all of that. But there has been this change in the JavaScript ecosystem away from common JS modules over to ECMAScript modules. And we've been holding out maybe a year too long on this transition. Obviously, changing this to us is a major release, even though it doesn't change anything for you as a user of Unleash. But if you're using Unleash or building on top of Unleash, this is a major change. And obviously, we have to follow the ecosystem. So we have to adapt to the new world. And upgrading to ESM for Unleash itself allows us also to take advantage of all the dependencies. Now, we see more and more dependencies only issuing new versions in ECMAScript module formats, which now allows us to upgrade all of those dependencies to the latest version and take advantage of that when we are improving Unleash. So I'm super excited about that. That was a huge rewrite for us. And even though it doesn't change anything for the user, it's still a very important change in order to keep Unleash healthy. Other than that, there is a lot of features, capabilities that we improved in Unleash itself. And we are going to talk about some of them today, so I will not kind of try to not share too much of the excitement. Don't spoil it. But I have to add that lifecycle management is super important. We will talk more about that. I also think particularly the release plan part of that is super exciting. But it also comes down to all the small tweaks that we do all the time. And each of individual improvement is maybe not that important, but kind of the sum of it just makes Unleash easier to use, more intuitive, and all of that. And that takes me to how we think about the major release. In technical terms, yes, it's an opportunity for us to do breaking changes, and you can read all about that in the migration guide and part of the documentation. But in reality, for most common use case, this should not come as a surprise. So if we take away something, it has already been deprecated for at least a year. We try to never do changes or breaking changes that break connected applications, because that is super hard for users of Unleash to adapt to. So even this change is almost like, yes, all the improvements we did over the last year is part of version 7, and we should be proud of that. But at the same time, version 7 is just one version higher than 6.10, the previous release. So it's some minor features added in 7, of course, but it's kind of from a versioning point of view, is more like a technical cleanup exercise for us than anything else.
Cool. Yeah, very excited to see some of the demos on this. I want to start by talking about the current landscape. And what I mean by that is a lot of our attendees here, they are leading technology teams who have heavily invested in CI/CD and DevOps and all kinds of agile practices over the years. And they've built some outstanding engineering organizations. Yet we're still seeing that things can go catastrophically wrong from time to time. So take the recent Google outage. There's a bug that made it to production. It was dormant for a while, and then bam, it's like causing a widespread outage that is really difficult to roll back. hopefully mitigate. So from your perspective, like what is going on? What is the fundamental piece that is still missing?
So I think DevOps is great, and it has made shipping software so much more reliable, efficient, predictable. And obviously we achieved all of this because of automation. We have stopped doing manual changes to our servers. We have stopped deploying software onto servers manually. And that has been a huge win. But even though DevOps is great and it's solved so many things for us, there is still this intrinsic challenge when we are building software and adding new capabilities or improving parts of our existing products. And some of the challenges are that the build kind of adding these improvements, it takes some time. It's not like we're adding a new capability. That is not something we do in a day or just a few hours usually. It takes a few weeks, maybe coordination between multiple teams. Maybe you need to also talk with your stakeholders. Maybe you need to align the release with marketing team, and we still want to take advantage of all the best practices and kind of doing continuous delivery, deploy things kind of in small chunks, make sure that all changes are kind of delivered continuously from a technical point of view. It doesn't solve that it still takes time and coordination to actually build those new capabilities. And we want to have high quality products for end users and not just ship something unfinished to everybody. And that is one part of it. The other part is that even though we have test environments, we have written unit tests for our changes, we have done whatever we can to make sure we have a quality improvement. The reality is, and pointing back to the Google incident that you pointed to, it's super hard to know exactly how your change is going to behave in production with real production data. And this is obviously where we see more and more teams adopting the best principles around what we now call the FeatureOps principles. So it gives you a foundation or set of practices on how you should think about changing your software, so that you're not just talking about how you ship software, which DevOps solves very, very well, but also what you're shipping and to whom are you shipping those improvements. In totality, what FeatureOps brings to the table is giving you that runtime control of your application, so that you can continuously add new software to your application and new lines of code, but you don't necessarily have to expose that immediately. You can take full control of your changes and control how you actually end up releasing the new features.
Cool. I love the name FeatureOps. But how does it actually solve the problem? Is it just a new name for feature flags?
It's so much more than just feature flags, and obviously that's part of it, but it's not everything. And to me, FeatureOps it brings a set of principles and practices to large organizations so that they can really organize and take granular control of the features they're building. And it optimizes for quick feedback loops and enable teams to make data-driven decision making. And how we kind of break this up is into these pillars, and the first and foremost, obviously, controlled feature release. This is the traditional feature flag, where you wrap the new feature in a feature flag, and you can kind of control how you roll that out. Who are you exposing it to first? Maybe test it on yourself first, or internal projects first, before you start enabling it for external customers. Then you have obviously the second part of that is the surgical rollback, because the challenge of introducing new things into production, at some time later something might break. With traditional DevOps method, you have to roll back everything, even the successful features that you built. With surgical rollback, you can actually decide to only disable the faulty part, the parts that didn't meet the expectations that you have as an engineering organization. The next piece, the middle piece here, is the full stack experimentation. And this is kind of thinking more strategically about how you validate the software, the improvements you're doing. And this breaks down into three kind of different dimensions. You have kind of the business side of the changes. You have the engineering side. Do we introduce more errors? Is the latency okay? And all of that. And then the last part that is often neglected, in my opinion, is the customer side of things. Have we solved the problem in a meaningful way for the end user? Which is also very important when we want to build high quality software. And then on top of this, we have the lifecycle management. And I think that is also something where we have started adding more capabilities in Unleash now. And I think for a large organization, it's so important that we're not just introducing feature flags and using that as a good tool to control the release, but we also have a process around how do we then clean up those feature flags afterwards. How do we make sure that we have reusable templates that we can use during the rollout? How do we have predictable cohorts of users? And all of this is part of the feature lifecycle management that makes it easier to handle this at scale for large organizations, basically.
Got it. So in the beginning, you brought up decoupling deployment from releases. Can we actually walk through like a specific example of what a controlled feature release looks like, and like how this instant rollback is different from like rolling back with your CI/CD pipeline?
Absolutely. Let's do that. So if we take kind of the engineering perspective, we want to break up every change into small chunks of code that we are shipping. And usually in real scenarios, we might be working on a bigger feature. In this example, we call that feature A. At the same time, we might have to go do a fix on another feature. We might have a smaller feature, in this case, the feature C, and then another fix in feature D. And these are not happening kind of seriously. They're happening in between each other, as shown in this example. And in the old way, before we started doing continuous delivery and trunk-based development, we had to kind of wait for all of these changes to align in some point in time before we could do a release. And the challenge then is it's all or nothing. Like we turn on everything or we turn on nothing. What we are proposing and using the trunk-based development, which is a well-known practice, the best practice from the DevOps world, in order to make it easier to collaborate between engineers on the individual improvements that we are doing, but also allows us to continuously integrate those improvements into the code base. And if you combine that then with continuous delivery, we can even start rolling out each change individually from each other. So if we roll out our application with just the first kind of #1 improvement, if it doesn't really work, if our application doesn't start, we can roll back only that change by rolling back and fix that. But at the same time, what happens is that when we then have the feature flags and the ability to control each feature individually at runtime from our application, suddenly we can introduce all these changes to our application, and we can individually turn them on when the feature is ready to be turned on. So we don't have to wait for feature 1 in order to get the fix for feature B or the fix for feature D or the smaller feature C in between. We can enable those individually, and then after 5 iterations of feature A, maybe then we are ready and aligned with the marketing team. Maybe they need to be involved because we're running a campaign, because this is a awesome new feature we want to make our users excited about. Then we can use control feature rollout to then gradually enable this new capability for our users. And even in that scenario, we might not want to turn it on for everybody at once. Maybe we are marketing only to single moms in a big city first for some reason. I don't know. But we can take full control and mitigate the risk of those big bang releases that we did in the past.
This sounds super powerful. I also want to go back to what you mentioned earlier around full stack experimentation. So what is that? How is that different from, like, say, A/B testing that teams have been doing for years?
So A/B testing is great, and it allows you to really kind of test when there is high uncertainty of what the solution should be. Then A/B testing can allow you to guide you and measure what really flies with your end users. The reality is that a lot of the improvements that we do in our daily work in established products, in established companies, there is less uncertainty on what we need to build. We have direct feedback. There is improvements that we know we have to do in the product. So we don't have uncertainty, that high level of uncertainty in what problems to solve. But there is still high uncertainty in the quality of the improvements we want to make. And for all those changes and improvements we want to do in our product, we need to evaluate those improvements in different dimensions. And one part is the business side, and in general, most of us are working for a company where we need to generate revenue or put money on the table for the company. So obviously, making more money for the company on a very high level. Usually that is broken down into to more kind of product specific KPIs like conversion rates or adoption rates or stuff like that. So that is one very important part for the improvements we are doing. We shouldn't build a lot of capabilities nobody's using, for instance. The other part is obviously the engineering side of the things, the quality usually. If we add something new or make a change to our application, and it ends up producing a lot of errors or introduces higher latency, that might not be what we want from a technical perspective. We are going to maintain this for hopefully forever if we are very successful. And then we also need to make sure that there are technical quality into what we are building and shipping. The last part is the voice of the customer. Again, we need to listen to our users, our end users. We need to make sure that we're not only solving a meaningful problem, but we're also solving it a meaningful way. And we can measure that in many different ways. Customer effort score is one way. We can look at support tickets related to that new capability we're building, or simply just go talk to our users, allow them to give direct feedback in a human written format. That is so powerful when we want to build something for real users.
Yeah, and this actually brings us to our first demo, right? So we have a demo on how to do this in practice with Unleash from Nick. So,
hi everyone, my name is Nick and I'm a solutions engineer here at Unleash. Today, I'm excited to show you how we help teams practice what we call full stack experimentation. At its core, full stack experimentation is about treating every line of code like a test. Let's go beyond a simple A/B test for button colors and understand the impact of a code change and measure it across your front end, back end, infrastructure, and user experience. Whether you're shipping a new feature, fixing a bug, or performing a back-end optimization, you're making a hypothesis. You need a way to validate it. This is where Unleash comes in. We are enabling developers to run experiments that matter, helping you connect the dots between your code changes and outcomes, impact on user satisfaction, and engineering costs. We call that the three voices. The voice of the business, think revenue and conversion. The voice of the customer, think NPS or support tickets. And the voice of engineering, response latency, error rates, and infrastructure usage. Most experimentation tools stop short, while Unleash is different. We're developer first and built to support engineering team as they test and iterate quickly with our gradual rollouts and gather real-time feedback. Because we integrate with the tools that you already use, like Grafana, Mixpanel, Sentry, and many more, your data doesn't need to move to a new silo. What makes this powerful is that we don't just help you ship faster, we help you ship smarter. By using feature flags and layering experimentation on top, you create a workflow where every feature delivery is a chance to learn and improve. So, with that context, let's check out a quick demo our awesome engineers put together and see how full stack experimentation works in practice with Unleash. We're going to head over here to an Unleash instance and start out in our full stack demo application project. In this project, we've got a couple of feature flags. We're going to be playing around with the chatbot feature flag first. And inside this chatbot feature flag, we have a couple of options set up on our variant side of things. Inside of our activation strategy variants, we are going to deliver 50% of the time an advanced chatbot and the other 50% of the time a very basic chatbot. And we're trying to understand which one is better or worse. Importantly, you can send not just a string value back to your applications, you can send a JSON, a CSV, or a number back. So what I can do is turn this feature on and we're going to see the feature pop up. So before we do that, let's go over to our application, put our age, select continue, and actually have a feature pop up at the bottom right hand side of the screen. So I can turn this new chatbot feature on. I'm going to reset my demo just because I want to get the advanced chatbot for demo purposes. Change my age, still there, kind of a 50-50 split every time. So we'll set it back to 31. And there it is. Now the advanced chatbot shows up. I can go and type and say, hi. It's going to type back to me and give me all types of information on what it can do. I'm like, great. show me my total expenses, and it's going to tell me my total expenses. So I'm having an okay experience with this right now, but let's simulate a not so okay experience and throw a little bit of a wrench in the equation. I'm going to simulate a little bit of a problem here, turn a buggy feature on, and now when my user is trying to chat with this advanced chatbot again, it's saying, hey, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble understanding you right now. And so I'm getting frustrated as an end user. I X out, I end up giving a really poor user experience score, and I end up having to go and get support because my questions weren't answered by that advanced chatbot. So this is a brand new feature. It's obviously causing problems, but let's get to the bottom as to why and show you where you can get some of this really interesting analytical and experimentation type data from different sources. We're trying to be not so specific about what tools you have to use. A lot of our tools, or a lot of our engineers that are using Unleash tend to love Grafana, so we're pushing data to Grafana through Prometheus. We can go and look at some of this execution times and all that good stuff inside of Grafana and understand that the execution time for the advanced chatbot is actually significantly higher than the basic one. We're also seeing that the cost per call, so we're measuring how many calls we're getting with the advanced versus basic, and it's costing us a lot more money. We're also understanding that it's taking more time. So a lot of good engineering metrics. That's that voice of engineering telling us that, hey, this is costing us more and it's taking a lot of time for end users to experience the advanced chatbot. So that's kind of step one. We can go back here and use some kind of product analytics tools to understand the voice of the business, and we can use kind of two different ones that are doing the same thing, and we chose an open source and a more closed source tool. So we'll start out with the open source tool, Plausible, basically an alternative to Google Analytics, to understand that when people are going and clicking on that support button, a lot of it is driven by folks that are exposed to the advanced chatbot in the first place. So higher conversion to the support click from advanced chatbot. That's starting to get us to scratch our heads a little bit and understand that, okay, we're seeing a lot of people come into the support channel from the advanced chatbot. We can confirm that or use a separate tool to get to the same insight, say Mixpanel, understanding that during the support funnel from support click, a lot of that is driven from the advanced chatbot. And of course, with Mixpanel and more paid tools, you can get really deep and get into deflection rates and really expose all those analytic insights that you need. But we're just showing here that two tools are kind of doing the same thing. One's free and one you pay for. We can even go back here. So that's the voice of the business, and now really understand the voice of the customer. So a lot of you guys like to use Sentry and understand your users and what they're giving in terms of feedback here, and understand that, hey, when people are coming into this advanced chatbot, we're seeing a ton of ones and twos from advanced chatbot users coming in. You can even do really cool session replays with the Sentry tool to see the feedback, but also be able to see issues inside your application. Understand that, hey, when users are exposed to this new advanced chatbot, they're getting all these errors, and you're able to correlate that and understand it. So now you're armed with all of the information about the fact that, hey, we thought this advanced chatbot was going to be really good for our end users. It ended up being a really poor experience for all fronts, on the voice of the customer, voice of engineering, and the voice of the business. So I appreciate you guys taking some time to watch this demo today. Please ask any questions that you might have, but remember that by combining control, insight, and speed, Unleash turns every feature release into a learning opportunity. And that's full stack experimentation, and that's how you build better software faster. Appreciate the time. Bye.
Thank you, Nick. That was really awesome to see. I love the flexibility of integrating with all of these different analytics providers and observability platforms. But one thing that comes to mind, though, is years ago when I was a developer at a large enterprise around 10K employees, I remember it was really difficult to get access to things. So even as a developer, I would not really get access to Grafana, for example. So is that still the case? Like, do you have any ideas or plans for making it easier for people to get access to the data and the insights they need?
Yeah, that's a good question, and actually we talk a lot with our customers and large enterprises using Unleash, and what we have learned is that software teams and companies, they use a lot of tools to make sure to validate the changes they're doing. They have multiple tools in order to just consider the business side of things. They have one or sometimes multiple different tools to look at the engineering side of things. And then you also have different tools in the customer kind of feedback side of things. We believe there is strength to all of these tools, and we don't say that you should necessarily replace all of these tools with just one tool, because they are optimized for different needs for the business. But what we are seeing and the feedback that we are getting is exactly what you're pointing to, Melinda, is that it can be tedious to get access to the data that you need to make sure that whatever capabilities we are building or improvements we are doing to an existing capability, that it actually delivers on the metrics or the kind of goals that we are setting for the success of this improvement. That is something that I'm super excited about, because that is one of the initiatives that we are working on right now. We call this the impact metrics. And what is very important here is that we don't believe that we should go replace all of the other tools, but still we think there is a need, and that is the feedback we are getting from our customers, to make it easy to connect the dots, connect sources or data from many different sources back to Unleash. This is just an example of one of the concepts that we're currently working on, and we would love to get more feedback from all of our users. But what we want to do is make it possible to send data back from, either it's from your Prometheus, so Victoria Metrics, Grafana, Datadog, or maybe Google Analytics, and send those metrics that really matters for the features that you're currently working on, so that you can create this holistic overview of the success of the feature that you're building, so that you can make it really easy for the entire all stakeholders of this feature to understand, when we're starting to roll out this feature, whether we have a positive or negative impact on these metrics that we care about across all the dimensions that we talked about previously. So I'm super excited about this capability. It's not going to be an easy feat, but we believe in iterations. We will build this over time. This is one of the bigger initiatives for this year, and you will find that you will see many improvements coming over the next few months in this area. But we are super excited, because this is the foundation to, as Nick pointed out as well in his presentation, this is the foundation for faster decision making, faster speed up the learning opportunity, because every change is a learning opportunity. How does it impact some metrics? Does it make your application or product better or worse in those critical dimensions? And it's also an opportunity then, when we start collecting these data and giving this aggregated overview, it also gives us the opportunity to start more automation. Instead of just manually increase the exposure of a feature, we can start using data and say, as long as these metrics are healthy, we are happy progressing the release to the next milestone. So I'm super excited about this capability. I see this as a door opener for a lot of new capabilities that we want to build in Unleash.
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm very excited about it as well. I think if I had all of these insights inside Unleash, and it's very easy to access them, it would make me want to do feature flags for everything. Which actually brings up another question in my mind. When teams have like hundreds of flags, say hundreds of flags across tens of teams, and they're all doing different releases to different rollout percentages and different stages of the releases, how do you stay organized? How do you make sure it doesn't just become a total mess?
Indeed, that's a big challenge that we see for larger enterprises, and where there might be thousands of engineers using Unleash at the same time. This is why we started by really thinking hard about how do we model kind of a predictable process of how you work with feature flags in general, and we call this the lifetime or lifecycle capability in Unleash. And the first step is to map out kind of the stages a feature goes through. So you start by writing some code that hasn't reached any users in production yet, so you're kind of in the development phase first. At some point in time, you will start testing it in production. You will start collecting feedback in production. It might just be for a couple of users, some internal stakeholders, something like that. But that's when you start learning for real in production. And by modeling each of these stages, and clearly define those. What this enables Unleash to do is that we already behind the scenes, we started collecting data on how long time does your team actually spend in each of these stages for various types of feature flags. And then over time, we want to use this insight to drastically improve. So we have these technical depth capabilities from the past, but we want to drastically improve that by using data from your organization, from your team, to make sure that we can understand your process, but also come with those useful hints like, okay, this flag might not be needed anymore, or maybe it's time to clean it up from the code. And this is where we want to, this is also a very important capability that we want to evolve more this year. We have done the first few iterations on the lifecycle capability. We're going to do a lot more. And I'm super excited. And one of the subcategories of the lifecycle is obviously the release plans and the release templates. I think maybe we should bring Anniken in to talk more about these capabilities and go a bit more in depth, because this is super exciting stuff that we are currently doing.
All right, let's welcome Anniken on Lifecycle Management.
Hi, I am Anniken and I work as a UX designer in Unleash. And I'll be sharing a little bit about how we look at feature lifecycle management in Unleash, and also a bit about how our new functionality release templates will help you have a more structured approach to guide each feature from rollout to completion, so we can move faster, reduce error, and maintain visibility. The purpose of what we call feature lifecycle management is to give the teams end-to-end control of how features are released, from planning through implementation and rollout to cleanup. We have heard from so many teams using Unleash that especially the cleanup part of all flags, that is in theory quite simple, but still so difficult to remember to do in practice, which again leads to technical debt. Our mantra in Unleash is to make life easier for developers, so that's also what we're trying to achieve with feature lifecycle. So let's have a look at what we have so far and also share some thoughts of even further improvements. So I'm now within a project. I will just start by creating a new feature flag, which we'll just call webinar flag example. So once you created your first flag, it will be in the lifecycle stage called define. And that means that you actually just created a flag and nothing more. And the second lifecycle stage is called develop. And this is where you do all of the development and testing of the feature. And the flag automatically changes status to develop once you see metrics in a pre-production environment. Here is also where you want to apply your rollout strategy. And as mentioned, we have now created release templates, which is a way of doing a rollout. And so to kind of help you speed up the process of those repetitive tasks that you might do. So I want to show you how that works first. So over in the left menu here under configure, you'll find release templates. And this is where you do the setup of the template. So if you're one of them that typically do the rollout in the same manner, it is a bit annoying to always going add the same strategies to all the rollouts. And then if you also do a gradual rollout, having to kind of go in and adjust the strategy along the way, it is repetitive and it is kind of redundant. So with release templates, I can show you this one, which is called standard rollout. You can set up milestones. These milestones are gonna, you can add as many and as few as you like. And to each milestone, you can add the preferred strategies. So for instance, this one, early access, we want to give a rollout to a segment we call VIP users. So that is what we want to add to the first one. While second milestone is then the early access ones plus 20% of all our customers. And then the third one is 100%. So you can really customize it as you like. And it's really flexible, so you can kind of meet your own needs during a rollout. This is a kind of a one-time setup job, but then you can apply it endlessly. So if I want to apply this template to the flag that I just created, I just go to the project I was just in here and find this flag. And then I just click on select the environment I want to add the template and to add it in production. So I click use template here, and then you can find this standard rollout template. So I'll just click use, and now we can see that the release template that we just showed then is added here in production environment with these 3 milestones. Once you enable the environment, the first milestone will also start executing or running. For now, it is a manual step to proceed to the next milestone, but we are exploring kind of what type of triggers could be useful to automatically move to the next milestone. For instance, after X amount of hours, or on a specific date and time, or after exposure rate is X%. It's really endless opportunities here. But for now, to start the second milestone, you have to click start on the second one, and then that one will go. So once we see metrics in a production environment and it is enabled, it will go to the third lifecycle stage, which is called production. To follow how your rollouts are going, you can either do it on the specific flag as you just saw, or you can go to this flags overview over here in the left menu. Here you can view all flags in their lifecycle stages, so those that are in define and develop and production, or you can select this quick filter called rollout production to follow only those that are currently rolling out. And here you can then see, for instance, this is on milestone 2 out of 9, while this one is 6 out of 6. So it's easy to kind of keep track of where we are in the rollout. So for instance, this flag here, it seems to be completed. It's 6 out of 6. Seems to be doing well, but this is also where many teams stop. You get everything ready, you roll out the feature, and then many teams tend to have not so good processes for actually cleaning up the code base and archiving the flags. And we have started to explore this area much more and how we can make it easier to get the flag all the way through the feature lifecycle. So if you go into this flag, you can see that we are starting to kind of experiment with giving you nudges like, hey, this flag has been live for quite some time without any changes. It's time to kind of complete it. And once you mark it as complete, it will go to the fourth lifecycle stage called cleanup, which you'll find here. For now, it is a manual step as well to kind of get from production to cleanup. So you need to kind of indicate when your flag is ready to be cleaned up. Also here, we have started to explore if we can give any nudges about like, hey, we haven't seen any metrics recently. Is it time to actually archive the flag? So if you go here and look at kind of the metrics data, you can see, for instance, this flag has received some metrics quite recently. Still get this message like we're still seeing indicating like activity metrics the last 2 days. It might still be in use. While on this one, for instance, it hasn't been used in 9 days. So then it's like, is it time to actually clean up the flag and archive it? So we have also talked to several customers about this, like going from production to cleanup and archive, and like how is the best way to approach this. And some customers want these steps to be fully automated, and even have like integrations to generate Jira tickets or even automated GitHub pull requests to clean up the code, while others like more the manual control like it is today. And we also talk to customers that want it kind of more semi-automated, like after X amount of days in production, they can set the X themselves, move the flag to cleanup, for instance. So we are currently exploring different options here to give flexibility and also meet various needs. So on this flags overview page, you can keep track of the main stages of the life cycle and develop, production, and cleanup. And also then, of course, use filters if you want to kind of narrow it further down. But you can also go to a specific project and click on the project status, and then you will see kind of how the flags distribute between the lifecycle stages. So you can, for instance, see here, okay, there are 5 flags in develop, and the average time they use is 16 days. And this can also help you kind of see where you spend most of your time, and also maybe where you want to kind of change some of your processes. So these are the 5 lifecycle stages from define to archive. And this is something we will give much more attention to going forward in Unleash, because we believe it will help teams get better workflows around flag management from the beginning to the end. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Anniken. That was awesome. What really resonates with me from that demo is the importance of cleaning up flags and staying on top of technical debt. And it's a slightly adjacent topic in my mind, like how do you stay organized? You know, when you have when you're using feature flags at scale, like what are some of the things you can do in Unleash to stay organized and make sure that flags don't get forgotten about? Do you have any thoughts on this, Ivar?
Yeah, I have many thoughts, and we are looking into many different things in this area. And one of the internal hackathon projects that are being taken to the next iteration right now is something around AI, of course. So we've been started looking into how we can take advantage of the life cycle, trigger an event internally to an AI cleanup bot, so that you can get automated pull requests directly into your code repository, removing the usage of that flag. And I think it's still early days, and we need to see how far we can take that. And we want to make it really work for ourselves first. So we are obviously using Unleash to build Unleash, and we have a lot of feature flags in our code base, and you can monitor this obviously in our open source GitHub repository, but we really want to make sure that this actually works, because our internal testing has proven that for some very simple flags, it's easy. And then suddenly you have some complex flags, and suddenly it starts hallucinating and doing weird stuff and changing the algorithm for something that is totally unrelated to the feature flag. And we want to be careful of those things, because obviously removing a flag is repetitive, and I think kind of a machine can do that quite well. At the same time, it needs to be properly instructed and do it accurately, so that you don't end up creating more mess than what a developer would do doing it manually. But other than that, I think there is other capabilities that also came in V7 that is quite interesting, and one of those are the link capability and the ability to create links from a feature flag to other systems. This also bridges the gap. Like, we know there is a lot of systems that people are using when building software with Unleash, and other systems that are relevant for those features can provide more insight, deeper insight, more kind of allows you to debug more. But it can be a bit hard to know exactly how to navigate the other system to find that insight. And having a link capability is actually quite powerful. It's a simple technique that makes it very easy to connect the dots. So maybe we should bring in Matej and go a bit deeper on the feature links capability.
Sounds good.
Hello, this is Mateusz from Unleash, and today I want to show you a new capability that we introduced in a recent version. We're talking about the external links. Every feature flag can be linked to one or many different resources from the external websites. So just to give you an example, I have a feature flag called improved JSON div, and this feature flag is linked to those 2 resources. One of them is Linear, which is our project management tool. And you can swap this tool with something different, like Jira, for example. But even more interesting than this is the second link with a code references in GitHub code search, where you can find all the usages of this feature flag across different code bases. Now, it may get pretty tedious to keep adding those links over and over again for every new feature flag. That's why we introduced one more new capability, and in the project settings. So at the project level, you can configure project link templates. And here you can specify a link template with two placeholders for the project name and the feature name. And from now on, every new feature that you create in this project will automatically get a link, in this case, to the GitHub code reference. Just to give you a few more examples of what the external links can be used for. For example, you can use those links to point to the actual application using your feature flag. You can also use those links to link to the engineering feedback from tools like, for example, Grafana. Or you can use those external links to get business feedback from tools like Mixpanel or Plausible that we use internally. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I really hope that you will find some creative ways how to use this new capability.
Cool. Thanks, Mateusz. I want to bring us back to the three voices we talked about: the voice of the business, the voice of the customer, and the voice of engineering. And in engineering, metrics, especially metrics like latency, are super key. And our global customers, latency is a constant battle for them. So how do we ensure that the very act of checking a feature flag doesn't make the situation worse?
You're spot on for the true global enterprises. Obviously, performance and latency is obviously one part, but it's also very important, the resiliency part, that feature flag system should not be a single point of failure. This is basically why we built Edge. It allows you to really scale the usage of Unleash and introduce the resiliency layer that you need as an enterprise. And we've done a lot of improvements to Edge over the last few months, and we packaged them all up in Enterprise Edge, and it's becoming a de-scaling component now with the new capabilities. I'm super excited to bring Enterprise Edge to market for all our customers, and I think we just need to bring Simon in to talk more about some of the additions to that.
So we have a demo from Simon on Enterprise Edge.
Hi folks, I'm Simon. I'm here to talk to you today about an exciting new offering from Unleash, Enterprise Edge. So if you're not familiar with Unleash Edge, let me take you through some of the basics before I dive into the enterprise offering. You can think of Unleash Edge as a high-performance read-only proxy that sits between Unleash and your applications. This means that your applications don't have to dial home to Unleash to fetch their feature flag configuration. They can instead reach out to the nearest Unleash Edge node. In practice, this is valuable for a few reasons. Today, I'm going to talk briefly about two of those reasons. First is performance. And when I say performance, I mean performance. Unleash Edge is capable of supporting several million applications with a single node. And this is pretty valuable when scaling out very large feature flag infrastructure. The second reason is resilience. So Edge only needs to sync once to the upstream Unleash instance. After that, it's capable of serving feature flag config to its connected applications, even if it loses connectivity to Unleash. With connected semi-permanent cache like Redis, the Edge nodes can happily survive restarts without interrupting your feature flag infrastructure. So first off, people don't always want to host Edge themselves. That's entirely fair. We know that hosting software can be complex, and ultimately the people best suited to host it are usually the ones who built it. Hi, that's us. So that's what we offer in Enterprise Edge. We make Edge available in any one of 11 AWS regions around the world, giving you an out-the-box, high-resilience global network for your feature flags. The second great piece of feedback that we've received is, hey guys, we're streaming. We actually get asked for this one a lot, which is entirely fair. So we built it. Our Enterprise Edge offering is streaming enabled, both between Edge and Unleash, and between Edge and your downstream SDKs. You couple that with a global presence. This means you can get near real-time updates to an SDK almost anywhere in the world, which I personally think is pretty darn cool. So our streaming's rollout is still in the early days, so that's currently only offered with our Node SDK. But you need it, reach out, we'll absolutely add it to any of our other SDKs. So feedback that we've taken on board is not everyone wants to set up a chunk of infrastructure to deal with that. So we've chosen to add Edge Insights directly to Unleash itself. This is what you're viewing on my screen at the moment. We believe strongly in dog fooding Unleash. We actually use Unleash to unleash, and Edge is no different. So what you're seeing here is actually a real-time view of our Edge instances in one of our clusters. This is real-life production data that you're viewing at the moment. So you can see all the Edge instances that are currently running in this cluster. Let me zoom in a little bit on one of these Unleash Enterprise Edge instances. Here you can see some rich information about the actual instance itself. Things like which region it's located in, what's going on downstream, and loose performance metrics about what's going on here. So here you can see this node over here is serving a significant chunk of our EU network traffic with just under 1% CPU. Yeah, that's me shamelessly showing off. So to wrap this up, who's Enterprise Edge for? Well, we built Enterprise Edge for you. To everyone who's already using Edge in the wild, thank you so much for your feedback. It was invaluable helping to build Enterprise Edge. For all of those who will be using Enterprise in the future, looking forward to hearing from you. And that's all I have for you today. So have a wonderful rest of your webinar.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, the next topic on my mind is AI. You brought up the AI cleanup project a couple of minutes ago, and that's probably the bright side of AI, but we've also seen a lot of negative sides, like how code quality has been dropping due to all of the AI-generated code. And for this, we have a presentation from Michael, who would like to share with us how FeatureOps is suitable and how we can use Unleash to manage this new coming of wave of AI.
Yeah, and to me, AI just highlights the importance of FeatureOps. It's not just about building new features faster, it's also about building the right features with the right quality. I think that is so important. And let's just bring it over to Michael that has some very interesting perspective on this topic.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm going to talk to you about 11 ways to leverage Unleash with AI. This is a topic that is super interesting and relevant and near and dear to our hearts. And so let's dive in. Okay, so setting the stage. Why does this matter? Well, clearly AI is growing at just an enormous rate and is not going away anytime soon. Some framing for that is that the most recent State of DevOps report pointed out that 76% of devs are already using AI to help code in some way. Gartner believes that by 2027, a majority of code is actually going to be written by AI. And Google CEO recently came out saying that well over 30% of code at Google is written by AI. And so I think this probably reflects the experience of most of us. But there's something else that I see in my experience, which is that AI is not always perfect. And we can also quantify that. The State of DevOps report looked at this and said, okay, what does a 25% increase in AI adoption lead to amongst a variety of other metrics? And there were three that I thought were really interesting. First was that a 25% increase in AI adoption leads to a 7.2% decrease in delivery stability. You can think about that as terms of bugs that are making its way into production. I think that is not surprising to many of us, right? People aren't perfect. AI is not perfect either. But what's also interesting is that an increase in AI adoption is also driving an improvement in code review speed and code approval speed. Taken together, these three things mean that more bugs are making their way into production at a faster rate. And this is something that we all need to figure out a way to manage. There are obviously enormous benefits to using AI. It removes a lot of toil for many of the tasks that that we don't enjoy writing. But it also creates these problems for our stability of our systems and our users in a production environment. So how do we get all of the advantages of AI with minimizing the risks? Well, we think feature management and feature flags are a key way to do that. I appreciated a recent talk that the CTO of Microsoft gave at Build, where he talked about patterns for building what he called the open agentic web. And I don't have time to go into everything from that talk. I encourage you to check it out. But one of the things that really struck me is that when we think about building the open agentic web, right, we're not throwing everything out that we know about software development. We're keeping a lot of the great things that make sense for people, and they make it even more sense for machines. I'm thinking about things like version control, CI/CD, observability, and feature flags are another one of these things that we think are absolutely critically important. They're a critical control mechanism for whether code is being written by humans or written by agents or assisted with Gen AI capabilities. So with that, let's dive into 11 ways that you can leverage Unleash with AI. And to be clear, and so I don't have to repeat it each time, I'm really talking about whether we are using AI-assisted code, whether we're using truly agentic code, right, autonomously developed code, or if we're talking about AI-enabled products. Really, it really doesn't matter. However you are integrating AI, Unleash can help. So the first way is really easy. It's just to use flags to roll out or test different models, right? You're creating a chatbot, and you want to know if ChatGPT, 3.5 is better at some reasoning task than something from Claude or whatever. It doesn't matter. You can very easy to do that with an Unleash. You can create your variants, and you can use flags to determine which of those variants is served. I'll talk a little bit more about measurement here in a minute. What you can also do is you can gradually roll out those tests to your users. So instead of saying, okay, let's give it to 100% of users, we can start with 0, 1%, 25%, 50%. You can increase those percentages as you're confident that code is truly doing what you want it to. You can be even more sophisticated with Unleash. You can roll out that code gradually to any segment of users. This could be only beta users. This could be users that have a particular product from your catalog, that are located in a particular region, that are using a particular device or version of your software. If you can measure it, then you can segment based on it using Unleash. What if there's a problem, right? What if the AI model hallucinates? Well, we make it really easy to roll it back without a code deployment. Even using automated code deployments, rollbacks take time. There's a recent Google outage. I think globally it took about 4 hours for the rollback to propagate its way through Google's global systems, right? And this is Google. Clearly, they are excellent at automation, and yet it simply takes time. Feature flags, on the other hand, are a runtime mechanism that can be instantly enabled or disabled in the case of problems. And this is definitely a control mechanism you want when you have AI producing code. What if we're not talking about a hallucination? We're talking really about a Skynet situation, right? The machines have gone wild. Well, that's what kill switches are for. And kill switches are a mechanism very similar to a rollback for reasons that I won't get into now, but you can look through in our documentation, that enables you simply to instantly turn off a feature or capability without a code deployment globally. So definitely something that I would encourage all of you to use in your AI generated code. And to be clear, I'm not just talking about front-end code, right? User experience. I'm also talking about back-end code. Google's recent outage was related to a binary for one of their internal services, right? And there was a problem, and it brought down half of the internet, right? Back-end code matters too, and is a great place to use feature flags. Next up is RBAC for agents or any code that's written with the benefit of Gen AI. As I mentioned, right, we're not going back on version control. We're not going back on observability and CI/CD. Why would we go backwards on role-based access control and other identity and permission management capabilities? We want this for our agents, and you can be very fine-grained and granular with Unleash when you're determining what your SRE agent can do versus, say, a developer agent. Beyond being able to specify who can do what, you also want to know when what has been done. And this is what audit logs are for. So here, very fine-grained logging for all of your agentic code. Very important if you're going through any type of SOC 2 or FedRAMP or ISO 27001 audit. Makes it really easy just to say, here's what happened. You can also use Unleash to approve any type of change that's coming through Gen AI or an agent. Just like you can approve it with people, this is sometimes called four eyes approval. You can also do it with your agents. Very, very easy way to make sure that you can get the best out of AI while mitigating those risks if you want a human in the loop. Um, as you develop all of these capabilities, you can start to automate things, right? And this is really where agentic workflows kind of have their meaning, right? We're not just talking about, co-pilot type. We're talking about, okay, here's a problem. I want you to go and figure it out and do all of the things necessary in order to solve this in production. You need to be able to, you need control mechanisms for automating this, right? I'm rolling out this capability. I'm seeing that it's hitting these thresholds. I want to do more of it. I want to roll it out to a greater percentage, or I want to roll it back. We have a capability that we call signals and actions, which allows you to listen for signals coming from your various systems, and then actions in terms of turning off, turning flags, etc. A special case for all of this would be something we call full stack experimentation, which is where you are running two versions of your code against one another, trying to figure out what performs better. But the full stack comes in with the measurement of that is not just front end conversions, who's clicking on what button, who's signing up in the shopping cart more, but rather how does that tie to back end metrics like CPU and memory consumption, infrastructure costs, error rates. So we're looking at the front end conversions, we're looking at the back end engineering type metrics, and we're also bringing in things that we call the voice of the customer. How are your customers reacting to this? Are they giving it thumbs up, thumbs down? What's the NPS score for this cohort of users? What's the qualitative feedback that they're providing in terms of comments within your product associated with that feature? It's really a 360-degree view of what's happening with that experiment. This is how modern teams determine what better looks like. And finally, when you're running those experiments, methodologically, we want to make sure that the same person is getting the same experiment version within their session, across their sessions, depending on how you've designed your experiment. And we make that super simple with what we call cross-session stickiness. This is what's going to enable your customers to get that same experience, regardless of how many times they're visiting your website, if that's what you want. So that's been a whirlwind. I encourage you to take Unleash for a spin. Try everything that you can do with Unleash and AI, and let us know what you think. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. So it looks like we're slightly over time. We have one more short demo for you today. If you need to drop, don't forget that you can always watch the webinar recording on YouTube. But if you can stick around, we just have a couple more minutes of a cool new feature for you. This demo is about what happens when things do go wrong. Let's say some AI-generated code made it into production and you're seeing a lot of errors. Like, how do you actually act upon that? How do you go inside Unleash and identify what's gone wrong and what to do next? So let's see a demo from Sol, our platform lead.
Hi, this is Sol from Unleash, and today I would like to talk to you about one of the many reasons to love Unleash. In particular, it's the events and the event timeline. Imagine you're on call and you get an alert that something is wrong. You go to your observability platform, you check all the dashboards available to you, and you see that the latency has increased, but you don't know why. If you have Unleash, what you could do is navigate to your dashboard, click on the event timeline, and you see all of the events across all of your projects that have happened recently. So you can narrow down the time span to, for example, the last 3 hours, choose the environment that you're interested in, and you see all of the events here. Each event type has its own type, so you can immediately see whether this event was turning the flag on or turning the flag off. And if there are many events happening at the same time, they are nicely grouped together. If you hover over the group, you see all the important information about the events, and you can immediately navigate to the feature flag that this event is related to. And you can see who to talk to in case you want to get more context about why this flag was enabled. So if you navigate to the flag itself and you're sure that this is causing the issue, you can turn it off and watch the alerts resolve. So this is very, very helpful in SRE duties, among other things. One of them is just really nice to look at. Right, so this event timeline is, of course, built on events, on audit events. And we can see them. We can go to admin and event log, and we see all of the events that ever happened across the whole system. And of course, usually it's a lot of them. And you can narrow them down by choosing the time span that is relevant to you, for example, this month. And then you can further filter those events by the person who created them, by the environment in which they were created, event type, and the feature flag, just to show how many different event types there can be. I will scroll quickly through this filter. Right, so there's many. And you can combine the filters. You can say by event type, by a person, by a concrete feature flag. So that narrows down the scope quite nicely. Additionally, you can also export those events as CSV or JSON and integrate them to your systems if needed. Right, so this was a very quick introduction to events and event timeline. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.
Thank you, Sol. And that is everything we had in store for you today. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for sticking around. And there's some questions in the chat as well. For the interest of time, I'll answer the ones that we haven't already answered during the presentations. So there's one, does Unleash has MCP for communicating with it? The answer is yes. There's a community contribution. I'll post the link in the chat. But also if you Google Unleash MCP, I'm sure you'll find it. Then there's a question around, is it easy to deploy Unleash from scratch? The answer is, it kind of depends. For a lot of themes, it's not trivial, and that is why we have cloud-hosted offering including Unleash Enterprise Edge. But if you're looking to self-host, we have a lot of really good resources on the documentation, and also like a very detailed explanation on how we scale Unleash. And this helps teams figure out how to work out like high availability and all of the upgrades. So I would recommend that you check that out. And let's see what else. There's some questions around A/B testing and best practices as well. I think we have covered some of the best practices around using feature flags at scale. But again, I would say that there's a ton of good documentation on this. And it's a very complex topic that ranges from thinking about how you architect feature flags in code, so making sure that you follow best practices there, and we have a detailed guide on this coming soon. But also things like small things like, do you have the right naming conventions in place? And do you have the right structures and organizations like internally with your teams and the right access controls? But also the things that Anakin was talking about, having good processes for the life cycle of these different flags and keep cleaning them up. So what I found really useful is like integrating the cleanup of feature flags as part of the definition of done as a feature. And you can now very easily do that with external links. So if you feel like you had any questions today that we didn't answer, you can always reach us on the community Slack. We love hearing from you there. You can find the link on our website, but just Google Unleash Community Slack. We're very active there, and we get a lot of feedback from you that we love and always implement in the product as well. So please feel free to reach out. We always love to hear from you. And that's it for the webinar today, and hope to see you soon. Bye.